Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease has all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal
Hello students, hope you are all doing well. Today we will start our first unit, A Midsummer Night's Dream, written by William Shakespeare. To be specific, I am going to discuss the background of the play A Midsummer Night's Dream. A Midsummer Night's Dream was written in a highly creative period in Shakespeare's career. So as we all know, Edward Dowden classified the 37 plays of William Shakespeare, and this particular play, Midsummer's Night Dream, falls under the first period, that is period of apprenticeship. Okay, and critics believe that this play was written and performed for an aristocratic wedding where Queen Elizabeth was also present. Okay, the purpose of this play is to stage in front of an aristocratic wedding. Okay, and this play is the most romantic and intricate play written by William Shakespeare. And Chesterton calls A Midsummer's Night Dream as the greatest of Shakespeare's play. And also another critic, Frank Kermode, F-R-A-N-K-K-E-R-M-E, Frank Kermode calls it as a Shakespeare's best comedy. Okay, Chesterton calls it as the greatest Shakespeare's play, and Frank Kermode calls this as a Shakespeare's best comedy. Okay, and for your easy understanding, I have divided this audio into 8 parts. Okay, so the first part is title, second one is the publication details, the third consists of sources and the structure of the play, the fourth one is setting, the fifth is theme of the play, and the sixth is the characters. Here I am going to introduce you to all the major and minor characters. The seventh is plot of the play, and the last one is critics' view on the play A Midsummer's Night Dream. Okay, and the first one is title. So here we are going to learn about the significance of the title A Midsummer Night's Dream. So A Midsummer Night's Dream refer to the midsummer day that falls on June 24th. Okay, so midsummer day is celebrated on June 24th. And here this is the important thing in the play, and the dream in the play takes place on April 30th. So midsummer day is on June 24th, and the dream takes place only on April 30. And this particular day, that is the midsummer day, is also the festival of Saint John. So that day they also celebrate the festival of Saint John. They make garlands, sing songs, hold some pageants, and they start lighting fire, and they form processions and everything. Okay, so it is a day of rejoice and merrymaking. Okay, to say about this particular day, this is a day of rejoicing and merrymaking and enjoyment and entertainment. Okay, so there is a belief that there is an activity of spirits and fairies on that particular day. Okay, so on the midsummer day, there is some activity of spirits and fairies is also seen. So that is the title reference. The Midsummer Night's Dream. The title refers to the midsummer day that is celebrated on June 24th. Okay, so it is a day of rejoicing, and there is some activity of spirits and fairies is also seen. The second thing that we are going to learn is the publication details of the play. So this particular play is written by William Shakespeare during 1595 to 1596. Okay, so in between these 2 years he has written this particular play. Okay, some critics also say that it is written in 1595, so we don't know what exactly was the year. He has written between 1595 to 1596. Okay, and it is actually written in 1595 to 1596. You can call it as 1595 also, and but published in the year 1600 by Thomas Fisher. Okay, so Thomas Fisher published this play on October 8th 1600. Okay, so this is about the publication details of the play. And the third thing that we are going to learn is sources of the play. So what is the sources? From what model he has written this particular play. Okay, so there are total 4 sources for A Midsummer Night's Dream. The first one is Chaucer's work, that is Knight's Tale. So he has written Knight's Tale in the poem Canterbury Tales. So in Canterbury Tales there is a particular part, Knight's Tale, and here this story, Knight's Tale, is a story of lovers. Okay, a story of lovers. There are 3 people. One is Palamon, Palamon, Palamon. The next one is Arcite, Arcite. Okay, these 2 are good friends. Palamon and Arcite are good friends, and these 2 are being captured by a king and put into a prison. And here from the prison they can see a beautiful girl, that is the daughter of the king. Her name is Emily, Emily, Emily. Okay, so these 2 friends fall in love with Emily, and later they fought a duel in order to win Emily. And Arcite was killed in the duel, and later Palamon weds Emily. So this love triangle is taken by taken by William Shakespeare as a source for this play. Okay, so the first source is Chaucer's Knight's Tale, and the second one is North's translation of Plutarch's Life of Theseus. So North's translation of Plutarch's Life of Theseus. Okay, from this particular work, from this Plutarch's Life of Theseus, Shakespeare has taken three characters: Aegeus, Egale, Perigenia. Okay, Aegeus, Egeus, Aegeus, Egale, Aegle, Egale, Perigenia, Perigenia. Okay, so this Plutarch has written Life of Theseus, and this particular work has been translated by North. So from this work he has selected some characters. Okay, has put in some characters in this A Midsummer Night's Dream. The third source is Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen. So Edmund Spenser masterpiece is Fairy Queen. From this Fairy Queen he has taken the concept of fairies, spirits. Okay, these subjects he has taken from Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen. Okay, the fourth source is again Chaucer's Merchant's Tale. Okay, in Merchant's Tale Chaucer has dealt with love Jews. Okay, so in this Merchant's Tale love Jews appear. Okay, so this particular love Jews is taken as a source for Shakespeare's Love in Idleness. So here Chaucer has given love Jews, and William Shakespeare has taken this particular source and he dealt it in a different way, Love in Idleness. Okay, so four sources I mentioned. The first one is Chaucer's Knight's Tale, the second is North's translation of Plutarch's Life of Theseus, then third one is Edmund Spenser's Fairy Queen, and the fourth one is Chaucer's Merchant's Tale. Okay, the next thing to be discussed is the setting of the play. So this the setting of A Midsummer Night's Dream is taken. This is taking place partly in city of Athens and partly in forest. So in the woods. So to contrast, one is in city, another is in woods or the forest. So this split between city and forest is thematically significant of one stands for civilization and another stands for wilderness. So the city of Athens is depicted as a place of civilization and law and order. Okay, so city Athens is standing for law, order, civilization, okay, these things. And while forest is a place of wilderness, anarchy and chaos. Okay, so here forest stand for wilderness, chaos, anarchy, while city of Athens stand for the place of civilization, order, law. Okay, so the whole setting takes place in city of Athens and forest. Okay, that is about the setting. Now coming to the theme of the play. So the theme of the play, the first line of the play itself suggests the theme of the play. What is the theme of the play? The theme of the play is marriage, is seen in the very first sentence of the play. Now fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. 4 happy days, but bring in another moon. Oh, methinks how slow like, okay, goes on like that. So now fair Hippolyta, or nuptial hour. What does mean by nuptial hour? Our wedding hour, okay. So the first first line itself tells about the theme of the play, marriage. Then the next theme, you can say, the magical power of love to transform our life. So the magical power of love is being described as a theme. And the next, another one theme is the relationship between imagination and reality. So there a lot of contrast was coming in the play about imagination and reality. What is reality? What is imagination? Okay. And the next, another one theme you can call the rivalry between young men is also one of the part of the play. And father-daughter relationship is also being highlighted at some parts. Okay. So these are the theme of the play. And let us move on to the characters now. So I'm going to list out the characters. Theseus, the first character, Theseus, Theseus, Theseus is the Duke of Athens. Duke means the king of Athens. So he is the king of Athens. And Hippolyta, the second character is Hippolyta, Hippolyta. Hippolyta is the queen of Amazons. Okay, she is the queen of Amazons. So Theseus and Hippolyta are meeting in a battlefield, and Theseus won Hippolyta by the sword, and thus Theseus is engaging with Hippolyta, and they are getting married. They are planning for their marriage. Only they're planning for the marriage that is to be happening in the 4 days after. And the next character is Lysander, Lysander. Lysander is a gentleman and Hermia's lover. So Hermia is in love with Lysander. And Demetrius, the next character, Demetrius. Demetrius is in love with Hermia. So Demetrius also loves Hermia. Lysander also loves Hermia, but Hermia loves Lysander only. Okay, so Hermia and Lysander are in love, but Demetrius is in love with Hermia. And Hermia is a lover of Lysander, the daughter of Aegeus. Okay, Aegeus, Egeus. So Aegeus' daughter is Hermia. So I introduced you to one pair of lover, or a couple, that is Hermia and Lysander. Okay, then Helena, the next character is Helena, Helena. Helena is actually in love with Demetrius. So this is like a love triangle going on. Lysander and Hermia is already in love. Helena is in love with Demetrius, but Demetrius is not loving Helena. Demetrius is in love with Hermia. And the next character is Aegeus. Aegeus is the father of Hermia. Aegeus is the father of Hermia. So Helena is not only in love with, Helena is the friend of Hermia. She is closely associated with Hermia also. Okay. Then Philostrate, Philostrate. Philostrate is the master of the revels. Master of the revels means an executive officer under the Lord Chamberlain's men. Okay, while introducing you to the writer William Shakespeare, I told that he was writing for the company called Lord Chamberlain's men. So Philostrate is an executive officer under Lord Chamberlain's men. Okay. The next character is Peter Quince. Peter. The next word Quince. Peter Quince is a carpenter by profession, and he is the person who is directing the group of amateur actors to perform a play in the wedding of Theseus and Hippolyta. Theseus and Hippolyta is going to be wedded after 4 days, and during that wedding they're planning to stage a play. So he's been planning to direct that particular play. The actors of that play are some laborers like weavers, vendors, tinkers, joiner, tailors. So these people are acting in that particular play. So here you can see a play within a play. So A Midsummer Night's Dream is a play, and in that play you have another play being staged by the characters in the play. Okay, Nick Bottom, Nick. Nick, the next word Bottom, bottom. Nick Bottom is a weaver by profession. Weaver, weaver by profession, and he is having a lead role in that particular play. Okay, the play is called, the title of the play is The Most Lamentable Comedy and Most Cruel Death of Pyramus and Thisbe. So shortly you call it as Pyramus and Thisbe. The full title is The Most Lamentable Comedy and Most Cruel Death of Pyramus, Pyramus, Pyramus and Thisbe, Thisbe. Okay, so the lead role of the play, this play, is The Most Lamentable Comedy and Most Cruel Death of Pyramus and Thisbe, is being done by Nick Bottom. Okay, the next character is Francis Flute. Francis, Francis Flute, Flute, Francis Flute. He is a bellows vendor, Bellows, bellows vendor, Vender. Okay, so when bellows is a device to furnish blast of air. While making fireplace, they used to push a particular device to get air. Okay, so that device is called as bellows, and he is also one of the actor of that play, The Most Lamentable Comedy and the Most Cruel Death of Pyramus and Thisbe. Okay, and the next character is Tom Snout, Tom, Tom Snout, Snout, Snout. He is a tinker, Tinker, tinker by profession. What is mean by tinker? One who mend utensils, one who mends and tames the utensils. The next character is Snug, Snug. Snug is a joiner. Joiner means a person who does carpenting work. Okay, joiner. Then the next character is Robin Starveling, Robin, Robin Starveling, Starveling, Starveling. He is a tailor, tailor by profession. Okay, these are the laborers who take part in that play. Okay, the next set of characters, Oberon. Oberon is the fairy king. You can call him as fairy king or king of the fairies. Oberon, Oberon. Oberon, he is a fairy king. Okay, king of the fairies. And the next character is Titania, Titania, Titania. Titania is the queen of the fairies. Okay, fairy queen. You can call her as fairy queen. And the next character is, so Oberon and Titania are actually they are also a couple. Okay, then Robin Goodfellow. Robin, Robin Goodfellow, Goodfellow, commonly called as Puck, Puck, Puck. So Robin Goodfellow or Puck is a mischievous spirit with magical powers. So he has some magical powers. He used to do some mischiefs also in this play. Okay. Another character is Indian Changeling. Indian Changeling, Changeling, Changeling is a ward of Titania. So Titania's ward is Indian Changeling. Okay, so actually Oberon and Titania are having a quarrel because of this Indian Changeling. So Titania is having this Indian Changeling. She refuses to hand over this Indian Changeling to Oberon. Oberon plans to change this Indian Changeling to a knight, but Titania does not give the custody of Indian Changeling to Oberon. So that's it, they have a quarrel between them. Then Titania's servants are Peace Blossom, Cobweb, Moth, Mustard Seed. Pease, Peace Blossom, 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 Cobweb, 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 Moth, 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 Mustard Seed, Mustard, Seed. Okay, so these are the characters of the play. And I missed out to mention about the structure of the play. So that is the third part, sources and structure. So structure of the play is also very important to know about. Here Shakespeare interviews 4 separate plots and 4 group of characters. So while discussing the characters itself, you can understand easily there are 4 groups of characters and 4 plots coming in the story. The 4 groups are, the first group is Theseus and Hippolyta. Theseus is Duke of Amazon, who stands for as a voice of law and order and reason. And the next Theseus and Hippolyta. Hippolyta is the queen of Amazons. And the second group of character is Hermia and her 3 friends, that is Helena, Demetrius and Lysander. Hermia, Helena, Demetrius and Lysander, these characters form a group. Okay, and the third group is Titania, the fairy queen, and Oberon, the fairy king, and the inhabitants of the forest and the fairies. Okay, these form another one group. And the fourth group is Adventures of Queens, Peter Queens, Bottom, Nick Bottom and other actors. So these laborers, who are the laborers? Tom Snout, Francis Flute, then Snug, Robin, Starveling. So these people form one group. So total 4 groups: Theseus, Hippolyta, then Hermia, Helena, Demetrius and Lysander, Titania and Oberon. Then last group is Adventures of Peter Queens, Nick Bottom, Tom Snout. So these people. Okay, and the 4 plots is also very important to learn. The 4 plots are, the first plot is about Theseus and Hippolyta, the wedding and the that is going to happen between Theseus and Hippolyta. The second the second plot or the second story that is coming in the play is Pyramus and Thisbe. So I told you, a play within a play. The title is, what is the title? The most lamentable comedy and most cruel death of Pyramus and Thisbe. So here this Pyramus and Thisbe is a separate plot coming in the story. And the third is concerned with 2 pair of lovers. One is Hermia and Lysander, and Helena and Demetrius. So Hermia and Lysander are in love, and Helena loves Demetrius, but Demetrius loves Hermia. But at last you can see they are united. Helena and Demetrius are united in love. And the next plot is, fourth plot is Oberon and Titania. So their love and the quarreling and reconciliation and everything is coming. Okay, so these are the 4 plots and 4 groups of characters that I want to mention. And the last part is about critics' view on A Midsummer Night's Dream. Okay, so the first critic is Charlton, Charlton, Charlton. He says A Midsummer Night's Dream is admittedly Shakespeare's first masterpiece. That is, put it in quotation, A Midsummer Night's Dream is admittedly Shakespeare's first masterpiece. And he continues and says that in A Midsummer Night's Dream, Bottom is a masterpiece and Theseus is a clever sketch. Okay, so the masterpiece is Bottom. Who is Bottom? Nick Bottom. Okay, who is Nick Bottom? Remember the characters I told you, a weaver by profession. Okay, Nick Bottom is the masterpiece and Theseus is a clever sketch. Okay, that has been made. And technically speaking, Charlton also says the weakest part of the play also, technically the weakest part of the play is its characterization. So the characterization is not that much brilliant or excellent. Okay, so first he says that this was the first masterpiece of Shakespeare. Then he says that Bottom is the masterpiece and Theseus is a clever sketch. Then he points out the weakest part of the play, that is characterization. And Edwin Dowden, the Irish writer, he says the most remarkable feature of the play is the harmonious blending of widely different elements. Okay, so the most remarkable feature is the blending of different elements, like the laborers is mixed inside the play, the queen and king are being mixed, then another kind of fairies is also here, supernatural elements is also present in this play. So you can say it's a harmonious blending of widely different elements. Okay, that has been said by Edward Dowden. And the next critic, Hazlitt, says in A Midsummer Night's Dream, we should imagine there is more sweetness and beauty of description than in the whole range of French poetry put together. So if you put together whole range of French poetry also, this particular play have more sweetness and description, beauty of description than the French poetry. That is what William Hazlitt tells about this play. Okay, so there is more sweetness and beauty of description in this play. And Schlegel is pointing out some criticism. Schlegel, Schlegel, Schlegel says, in A Midsummer Night's Dream, there flows a luxurious vein of the boldest and most fantastical invention. So this is, the most boldest and most fantastical invention. Okay, so that is by Schlegel. Another critic says that A Midsummer Night's Dream is a dream of white Athens and dark woods. You can see Athens and dark woods, where the fairies flit like fireflies amongst the trunks, spreading branches. Anon, gather to carol to their queen. So here you can see fairies like fireflies roaming around the dark woods. Okay, and he added, A Midsummer Night's Dream is the most extravagantly pleasing, the most beautiful, the most detectable of all Shakespeare's comedies as imaginative fiction. Okay, so this is the most extravagant the most pleasing, most beautiful, most detectable of all Shakespeare's comedy. So that is what Cowling says. Okay, Cowling is telling about the play. He's mentioning about the fairies which jumps like fireflies in the dark woods, and he also says that most pleasing, most detectable, most beautiful of all Shakespeare's comedy. And the next critic, Stopford Brooke. Now, Stopford Brooke says that the play is a comedy of incident, not of character. So already we see Charlton is telling about the weaknesses, the characterization. Here Stopford Brooke is also saying the play is a comedy of incident, not of character. It's not a comedy of character, it's a comedy of incident. Okay. And next critic, Chambers, Chambers, Chambers says the introduction of the supernatural element does not bring about anything which would have been impossible or improbable without it. The magical love in idleness really does nothing more than represent symbolically the familiar working of actual love in idleness in the human heart. Boys in love change their minds just so without any whisper of the fairies to guide them. Okay, so the introduction of the supernatural element does not bring about anything which would have been impossible or improbable without it. The magical love in idleness really does nothing more than represent symbolically the familiar working of actual love in idleness in the human heart. Boys in love change their minds just so without any whisper of the fairies to guide them. So this is what Chambers tells. There is some supernatural element, okay, in the play, and he also talks about the magical love in idleness, which is present in the present generation also. Okay, the last part I'd like to discuss the plot of the play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm going to give a brief plot of the play. A Midsummer Night's Dream opens with the wedding preparation of Theseus and Hippolyta, which is being planned to conduct after 4 days. Aegeus enters with his daughter Hermia and her 2 suitors Lysander and Demetrius, and here he enters into the court of Theseus and he is trying to talk with the duke. Her father wants her to marry Demetrius. He declares that if Hermia won't marry Demetrius, she either have to die or been sent to nunnery. So she decides to escape to Athens with Lysander. Now Hermia is deciding to elope with Lysander into the woods. Now Helena is in love with Demetrius. Hermia and Lysander tells Helena about their plan to leave the city of Athens. So it is the law or the Athenian law which tells that she have to die or she should be sent to a nunnery if she is disobeying her father. So they are planning to leave from Athens itself. Okay. In the last effort to gain Demetrius' love, Helena decides to tell him of this particular plan. And in the other part of the play, another group of people, Peter Quince. Peter Quince. Who is Peter Quince? Peter Quince is a carpenter by profession. He is directing a group of amateur actors to perform a play. The play, that is Pyramus and Thisbe, the full title is the most lamentable comedy and most cruel death of Pyramus and Thisbe. So for what purpose they are planning to perform this particular play? For the wedding of Theseus and Hippolyta, which is planned to be conducted 4 days after. Okay. Now here in this play, Nick Bottom is given a lead role. Okay, Nick Bottom is performing well, and he is given a lead role. Another part of the story, Fairy Queen Titania and Fairy King Oberon are arguing because they have a quarrel because Titania refuses to give Oberon the custody of a young Indian boy whom she is raising. She is raising this particular boy. Oberon, because of this thing, Oberon sends the mischievous spirit Puck, that is his jester, 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 to find a flower called love in idleness, the juice of which makes any person to love the first creature he or she sees. So Oberon sends Puck to fetch this particular flower called love in idleness, and when you squeeze this particular flower's juice into the eyes of a person, the first person they see after that juice is been applied, they will fall in love with. Okay. Now Oberon overhears and Helena and Demetrius, and taking pity on Helena, who is treated terribly by Demetrius. Okay, Oberon instructs by overhearing this treatment of Helena by Demetrius. Oberon instructs Puck to put some love juice or love in idleness juice in the eyes of Demetrius. Puck mistakenly pours this love in idleness in the eyes of Lysander. So he thought Demetrius as Lysander as Demetrius, and Puck pours love in idleness in the eyes of Lysander. So in the meanwhile, Helena wanders in search of Demetrius, and she awakens the sleeping Lysander. He falls in love with her. Thus, Lysander, who is been influenced by the love in idleness, saw Helena for the first time, and after he is awake. Okay, after he is awake, he falls in love with Helena. So don't confuse. Puck actually plans to pour this love in idleness juice into the eyes of Demetrius. So while searching for Demetrius, he mistakenly thought Lysander to be Demetrius, and he pours the love in idleness into the eyes of Lysander. Lysander was sleeping during that time, and he wakes up and sees the first living being, that is the first time he saw Helena. And Helena, now Lysander falls in love with Helena. Okay. The other part of the play, when Titania falls asleep, Oberon is a person who asks Puck to pour the love in idleness into the eyes of Demetrius, but Puck mistakenly pours into the eyes of Lysander. And Oberon not only wants Puck to pour the juice into the eyes of Demetrius, but he also wants Puck to pour the love in idleness into the eyes of Titania. So Titania was quarreling with Oberon, isn't it? So when Titania was asleep, Oberon squeezes the love in idleness into the eyes of Titania. So when she was asleep, he pours the love in idleness into the eyes of Titania, the fairy queen. Titania waking up saw donkey-headed Nick Bottom. Okay, he is a weaver. So he was actually, Nick Bottom was performing in the play of the Pyramus and Thisbe, the most lamentable comedy and most cruel death of Pyramus and Thisbe. And here, sorry, here he is wearing a donkey-headed face, and Titania falls in love with this donkey-headed bottom. Okay, and Titania now willingly releases the Indian boy to Oberon. So this is what Oberon wants from Titania. So, okay, so in order for the custody of this Indian boy, Oberon pours or squeezes the love and idleness into the eyes of Titania. Oberon's plan is complete now, and so he releases her from the spell. So after his things, everything is been done properly, he releases her from the spell. While the other part of the play, while Lysander, Demetrius are sleeping, Puck reverses the spell on Lysander. Now everything is been reversed and all are united now. So the joyous lovers enter in the final act. Theseus decides that it is time to plan the festivities for the evening and chooses to see Pyramus and Thisbe performed by the players. Okay, so they see the performance of the players, and thus the play ends happily. Okay, so this is the short plot of the play. So we learned the title, significance of the title of the play, and in significance we talk about Midsummer Day, that is June 24th, and here one more reference is there, May Day is also mentioned, M-A-Y, May Day. Okay, and the second thing is publication details. It's been written in 1595 and it been published in 1600 by Thomas Fisher. And the sources, we learned about 4 sources. One is Chaucer's Knight's Tale, another is Chaucer's Merchant's Tale, then Fairy Queen, then Plutarch's Life of Theseus. Okay, North's translation of Plutarch's Life of Theseus. Then structure, we learned about 4 group of people and 4 plots. Then setting, one is the city of Athens and other part is happening in the woods. Then theme of the play, marriage, then love, the magical power of love to transform lives of people, and father-daughter relationship, human relationship, rivalry between young lovers, young men, everything. And we learned the character list, then plot of this play, and the critics' view on A Midsummer Night's Dream. We learnt about 7 critics: Charlton, then Edward Dowden, William Hazlitt, Schlegel, Cowling, Stopford Brooke, and the last is Chambers. Okay, I hope you understand the background to the play. Okay, keep learning, stay safe, and happy learning. Thank you.